So I shot here for the first time in 2020, and I was coming pretty regularly. And I remember when you took over, and the first time that you came out, and I was in a kind of a sea of shooters at that point, and you introduced yourself, and you talked about the ballistic walls that you guys were going to put up, and it really resonated with everybody. And that was in January. It was August of the same year, so it was August of 2021 when I took over the match. And backing into that, what the motivation was there was really about the range. And that, it wouldn't have been the same. I wouldn't have had the same motivation at different ranges. One, there's a lot of things that SharpShooters has that don't exist everywhere else. And
ballistic walls being one. What else?
Ballistic walls is one. The
3 bays.
Having 3 bays, which we didn't use at that point. The quality of the bays, the lighting, the ventilation, the staff, the way that the store and the feel when you walk in, it feels like an upscale gun range, but with a warm, relaxed environment.
Just stop right there.
We're done.
And
he's just going to take that and loop that.
Absolutely, that's going on a reel.
It is, yeah.
And but that doesn't come.
And the location is also pretty good.
Well, the location is huge, and that is a key. If they're gonna. There's a lot of, there's indoor ranges around. This one is pretty centrally located. And, close to some of the biggest outdoor ranges around. And if we had the bays, we would have the amount of shooters, I think, that some of the outdoor ranges have. But it's not, the staff don't happen that way by themselves, right? So when you took over, as time progressed, there was a notable change of the atmosphere, of the culture that you could see at SharpShooters. I know from having been shooting here for a couple of years at that point that the match, it had so much potential. The range had everything to support a huge match, and one that should fill up every week. So through a couple conversations with a couple other shooters, and who really, gave me the idea and said, hey, you know what, why don't you guys take over? And it was talking to me and another shooter, Mike, and they both, Mike's still on staff and Sean is still shooting here regularly, but that it just kind of grew into that. It's like, well, okay, so let's talk about that. It was a packed match and then had dwindled down to where many matches were just being canceled. And knowing the operating cost to actually run an indoor range, most people don't understand really what that takes. And so there's some pressure to make sure that if you're going to take up a bay in an indoor range, that it needs to be something that, the range isn't losing money. So that was the motivation. Stepping into it, it's like, okay, let's identify why. What's not working? Why isn't it packed every week? We have the demand, but
what were some of the top reasons?
Well, the stages.
Was this before you took over?
This was right before I took over. Okay. So, it had been passed from one match director to another match director by virtue of, well, you're the assistant and now I'm leaving, so here you go. And then it went to 3 different people, and by the time it got to the last person, it was a person who had come from a different shooting discipline, and it wasn't, many of the stages weren't stages, not only some of them weren't maybe USPSA legal, and it wasn't for lack of interest. It was just maybe for lack of general knowledge of what that takes, or even the time to put into it. And that wasn't as important to me as what it could be. What's, rather than go back and give it an autopsy, let's say, okay, what is it going to take to get it to where we need to be? And just putting in the work. So coming in, presenting, the plan to you, at least the question, would this be an interest to you? And quickly you came back with, yeah, absolutely. And what is it going to take? So talk to the shooters. What are we missing here? First, creative stages. Having stages and having the ability to put out props and equipment that are going to be able to create those stages that give you those challenges are important. Having the staff that believes in it to support it. Now, when we started, it was me and one other person. And it was us by ourselves building the stages. Occasionally we get people come in to help out 20 minutes before, but it was pretty frantic. At the same time, we were trying to build new walls and repair things and make sure we have enough pasters and target stands and bringing things in by hand. And as it grew, it didn't grow from us just putting in the effort. It grew from structure. And in any sport, it's only as good as the officiating and the level of consistent measurement, competitive equity. Nobody is in a sport for, it's just a hobby for fun. They are,
Some of them are.
but you'd be hard pressed to find somebody who doesn't check their scores.
Right. Yeah.
So
You mentioned earlier, Camille, that when I'm sorry to
No.
but when you DQ'd,
Mm-hmm.
that you had lots of adrenaline.
Mm-hmm.
So I hear you there as a competitive person myself. Whenever I'm competing in anything, there's that.
it never goes away.
Never
No.
goes away.
Yeah.
And when it goes away, you're done.
Yeah, well, and or maybe that's when you get better. I don't know. I've never talked to
When
anybody.
my adrenaline drains, I get hungry. But go
Yeah.
ahead. Yeah. After a match, I'm like really hungry.
And it doesn't matter if you've been shooting a week or 5 years. All of the challenges that come in a stage when you don't shoot well, it's 95% self-inflicted, right? And so this is pressure we put on ourselves. And once you learn to let that pressure go and relax is when you shoot better. You don't shoot better when you start running a match. It just...
Actually, I've been shooting a little better the last couple of weeks.
You have.
But just to piggyback off of that, because I was coming to the match before Scott took over.
Okay.
And when he talked about, if officiating, shooters don't like gimmicky stages. They're not here to, they want a quality match. They want one where, like Scott said, there's structure. And so we have maintained that and continue with that. A lot of people would say that we're more structured than others. When you go to another match, maybe they are not as structured on the rules. But here, our goal is that if any shooter shoots our match and they decide they want to go to a major, they're not walking into an onshore environment. We want them to have, to know the rules and what to expect in a major. So while we're not considered a level 2 or level 3 match, we treat it as such. We respect the rules. We expect the shooters to maintain that, and we promote that. And so I think that's what brings the shooters in, because they know that they're coming into a safe environment, an equitable environment, and one where they can actually hone their skills, and train in a way, because a lot of these shooters use these as a training ground. And so new shooters coming into USPSA, we want them to start off on the right foot. We don't want them to be behind when it comes to knowing what the rules are and what to expect as a shooter, because safety is a huge thing in our sport. And we are very, very firm in that. And we want to make sure that coming in, our match is safe, you're safe. And if you decide to go to a level 2 or level 3 match, you're not going to be caught off guard by what you see there. So that's one of the things.
And it happens a lot that way. If you went to USPSA and asked them, one of the common things they hear when somebody DQs or doesn't like a call, and when she says major, level 2 would be sectional or a state match, level 3 would be an area match, and then there's nationals. And And the rule book is the same. There are a few rules that allow for specific things at level 1 matches. We, for the most part, don't really acknowledge those. Like, for instance, some of those, if at a level 1 match, you are technically allowed to tell people that they can or can't engage a target from a specific position. At a level 2 match, you can't do that. If you can see it, you can shoot it. And we don't want anybody going to a level 2 match, and a lot of our shooters will. There's level 1 rules that allow for certain things, and we typically don't want to acknowledge those, because other than that, the rule book is the same.
Right.
Now, there are level 1 matches that, well, we're going to not do that, and we're going to give this to this person because it's just a level 1. Just a level 1, you will hear, and for top level USPSA, it's just a local match, right?
Just a local.
And which is like nails on a chalkboard to us, because the rule book's the same, and there's no reason why the rules aren't applied the same. Now, we do, for new shooters coming in, we don't want them to feel overwhelmed and not welcome. So coaching is one of those things, coaching new shooters as they're shooting. We'll have somebody ROing them that has top level experience, that is able to let them know if their finger's in the trigger guard, or if they are moving right to left and reloading and are in danger of, their muzzle breaking the 180 and them not knowing it. So we'll give them coaching through that to make sure that they are comfortable. Their their only goal in their first couple matches is
not to DQ.
Just don't DQ. Don't DQ. It doesn't matter if you come in last. But in addition to us, we talk about rules. The staff has monthly Zoom calls. We talk about what's working, what's not. How can we get better? How can we grow? And in making this work, when we developed and moved from 2 bays to 3 bays, knowing that, well, technically everybody's still shooting at the same time, shouldn't take any more time. You're just rotating through. I mean, it does, because there's more people, there's more opportunity for a stage to be slowed down by something, or a call that needs to be escalated to the CRO or the range master. And the only way this works is, one, if you're not on deck, you're not walking the stage. And because at some matches, you'll see, 4 or 5 guys each time that everybody goes down to paste or reset, 3 or 4 guys walking the stage between a few different shooters. Well, and that's fine for that match. And at majors, you're not allowed. If you're not on deck, you're not walking the stage. And this is for a couple of reasons. The reason at majors is for competitive equity, because you're not in the way of the on-deck shooter. It's their stage, and it's their turn to walk. Secondly, if one shooter has 5 extra walks than another shooter, well, it's not really fair, because you both have the same 4 minutes. You have your on-deck walk. But if you're walking, you're not pasting and resetting, and that's where most of the time is taken up. So for us to be able to hit that 2-minute mark that we need, shooter to shooter, everybody needs to be down there pasting, resetting, and getting off the stage as fast as possible. And the next shooter should be in the start position, ready to go. Efficiency is the toughest thing to maintain here without us sacrificing stage quality and complexity, to the point that we could do easier, less rounds on the stage, and then we wouldn't have shooters because it wouldn't be as fun to shoot.